Hi, everyone. Welcome to Unleash Her. Thank you so much for being here today. I appreciate you guys. I'm so glad you're here. And I can't wait to introduce you to my guest. But first of all, in case you don't know me, I'm Roberta. I'm so glad that you're here today. And hey, if you are on Spotify or Apple, hop on over to YouTube so you could see our faces here. It's at Roberta Campbell Official. We would love to see you there. And I would absolutely love it if you would subscribe to the channel and like our video today. So thank you so much. So a little bit about my guest today. He has a book called The Power of Personality. And really, the takeaway from this book is that our relationship with others will only be as healthy as our relationship to ourselves. So I'm really, really excited to have this discussion with my guest today. And I know you guys are going to get so much value out of this. So without further ado, I would like to introduce you to Eric G. Hi, Eric.
How's it going? I'm really
Great.
happy to
How
be
are you
here.
doing?
Great. It's an early start for me. I'm not normally a morning person, but I'm ready to go.
Good. Well, thank you so much. Thank you for being so flexible. I appreciate it. Yeah, so let's dive right in here. It sounds to me like you're ahead of the time with this whole like personality trait and all of that. So tell us a little bit about yourself and how, you were led along this journey.
Yeah, like as a kid, I think I felt a little different. And I mean, I think a lot of kids feel a little different. And it really just becomes a point of emphasis when people are telling you to be something that maybe you're not feeling right. So I studied a lot of different personality typing methodologies. I think the most prominent and the one that I think I get a lot of my system gets a lot of comparisons to, basically because it's an evolution of it, is Myers-Briggs or MBTI. But there are others, like people talk about the Enneagram, DISC, things like that. I think that there are a lot of other methodologies that people use a lot in work. And so I studied all these maybe around the time I was like maybe 16 or 17. And I started developing my own, which I used with an education company that I founded. And, in that education company, I worked with maybe 1,000 students a year. Of course, not me personally. I had teachers that worked for me, and we kind of taught them how to type themselves and type their students. And then I got to see the interaction between the various personality types and helped to develop my methodology even more, which obviously led to me writing the book, which came out last year.
Oh, wow, that's incredible. Um, yeah, I find it so fascinating and that you got started into this. It seems like at such a young age. Like a lot of people were not even thinking about their futures or their personalities.
I always see like there's certain personality types that don't have a midlife crisis. Their whole life is a midlife crisis where they're always like, wait, what am I? Am I doing the right thing? I don't know. It feels right. I maybe not. Let me change it. And I think a lot of times those personalities I won't say are late bloomers, but they kind of get a late start in terms of self-confidence, right? Where there are other personality types where if they're more plentiful in the population, then the values that they like tend to be the ones that they often see around. That's, the value that says like, oh, you should work hard, get good grades, pay attention to the teacher, follow the rules, and then kind of take this very linear path. Of course, the only issue is when you haven't thought about what you really want to do, then those kind of personality types get to be around, 40, 45 and start wondering, dang, did I do the right thing? Like, I don't even like my job. I don't even like the person I'm married to. Like, why am I here? And so they're good and bad for each personality type that we can always go over, strengths and weaknesses, and kind of like everyone's always asking, what's the best personality type? And I'm like, there is none, but maybe not the one that's only 1% of the population. But they're great, but it's not always great being them. So
Yeah. Okay. No, wait. How many personality types are there?
there are 16. So that's a really common number. I think when people think of MBTI also has 16 types. But I always tell people, yeah, I also have 16, but it's the way that those types are, for lack of a better word, diagnosed, that is the major difference. Like a common, I guess, dichotomy would be introversion versus extroversion. I think that's something that a lot of people, when talking about personality types and just personality traits in general, that introversion is one that's often mentioned because people see introverts as kind of like the underdog, right? But I don't really even believe in introversion, extroversion because talking about personality typing for so long, one of the major arguments that I often get is, oh, yeah, it's stupid because I'm extroverted now, but in this situation, I'm introverted. And I'm like, well, yeah, that's true. Like, it actually depends more on context. So, in a way, I don't really use introversion or extroversion to kind of like type people. I don't, not that I don't believe in it, but it's not as important as it seems to be.
Yeah, I so agree that, I one person told me, a friend of mine years ago, she's like, "Well, you're an introvert." And I don't know why it pissed me off.
Well, I was gonna ask a question. Is it because like in certain situations you're more vocal and others you're more like, no, I'm cool, I'm good.
Yeah, yeah. And I like to think of that introvert, extrovert as, you know, it's sometimes I'm a follower and sometimes I'm a leader.
Hmm. Like, do you, when you're a leader, is it because you have like a really strong belief in something or a principle, and that's when you kind of advocate for it, versus like naturally just, I don't want to say naturally being bossy, but naturally, like if you're in school and you're a group and you have an assignment, some like people, some personality types naturally just go to the forefront and say, okay, this is what we're going to do, guys. We got to make sure we get this done because this is what the teacher wants us to do. Versus like if you really feel passionate about something, then that's when you're going to be more vocal.
For sure. It's all about passion for me. I'm willing to kind of sit back until when it's my time, I'm like, okay, I have something to say. And that's really come about the last just actually year or two, I would say.
Did you feel like when you were growing up, some of the things that you really liked or really wanted, or maybe were feeling like you wanted deep down inside, weren't necessarily the things that were being reinforced externally?
Oh, 100%. I think that, and I'm sure you agree too, that, how we were raised, our upbringing has a lot to do with all of that. So yeah, I was suppressed and I was silenced a lot. And we
Mm.
weren't allowed to share our opinion a lot of times. So that kind
Yeah.
of, but I think my trait naturally also is, a little quieter as well. So like in groups of people, typically I'm not going to jump into a group of people and start sharing everything with them. I'm very guarded. So
Okay.
getting to know me better, Eric.
Yeah, no, well, because I said I was going to try to guess your personality type, so I have to like ask some subtle
Mhm.
questions. I go over that in the book. Like, you don't always want to be super direct, but these natural things come up in conversation, right? Where people are like, oh, like that's really interesting. And I think we meet a lot of different people throughout our lives. And so everyone has all this stored up information in their heads, but they can't necessarily, or they don't know how to access it. Like, because there are things that you wouldn't even think about. But hopefully, if you read, not that I'm shamelessly plugging the book, but hopefully, if you read the book, then you go, oh, like I never noticed that about this person. But now, since I've read it, like, oh, that is an indicator of maybe this personality type or this personality type.
Yeah. Does that just help you have a better understanding of others and yourself, I guess?
Yeah, I guess the most important is yourself, right? Because you don't want to like feel like you're constantly, or you don't want to, you want to know when you're being pressured to change because that's not a great thing. And then obviously, if you know yourself, for some types, they do know themselves because it's their personality type matches the external reinforcement. So in their case, it's really important to know, hey, you are you, but your values don't necessarily apply to this person, this person, and this person, even though maybe half the population your values apply to, it doesn't mean there's an entire other half where they value different things.
Yeah. And don't you think too, it's like bringing out our authentic self?
Yeah, I think sometimes, especially if you're in one of the, for lack of a better term, one of the minority types, where because some of the personality types don't make up that large a percentage in the population, you're definitely going to feel very, very different, and you're going to feel pressure to become like the other types, and obviously that's not a good thing.
Right. I feel like authenticity, which that's what our this podcast is about. It is finding your true self. And I'm on this journey. Okay, I guess it was a late bloomer. Like you were talking about earlier, the empty nester who says, "Hello, what
Yeah,
am
you're
I
like,
doing?"
wait, what am I doing? Like, why did I make these choices? Dang it, I should not have done my homework. I should have just like, done my own thing. No, I mean, it's great to do your homework. Don't get me wrong. I work with a lot of kids. I often like working with them like I start often in junior high, like right in the beginning, because a lot of my clients, like their parents are just like, I do not know how to do this kid anymore. Like they hate me. They hate me, and they're pissing me off, and I don't really know how to communicate with them. And I love starting at that age because I mean, I feel like we're all insecure at that age, so it's I don't want to say they're susceptible, but I think they feel so much pressure at that age to become all these different things that they're being told that they should be, and it's really satisfying when I can help them like become who they are versus become who their friends are or their parents are.
Yeah, for sure. And it's so amazing to have that mentor or coach in your life too, that and that you start at this younger age while their minds are still open. And for sure, we're going to listen to someone else other than our parents, right?
Oh, yeah, 100%, right? I mean, what do your parents know, right? What's that Mark Twain quote where his dad didn't know anything when Twain was 12, but his dad learned by the time Twain had turned 18, his dad had learned a lot in 6 years.
Jeez,
Yeah.
right? You say this thing that your brother once said that if Eric doesn't like doing something and it takes longer than 15 minutes, he's not going to do it. You've done so much in your life though, Eric. So you've got to be able to like stay focused on something more than 15 minutes. Or was that referring back to your younger days?
I think that was just no, that's my personality now. But I think, like we had said before, sometimes people are extroverted, sometimes they're introverted. Sometimes people are very ambitious and focused, and sometimes they are not. And I think it was in reference. A friend of mine was a CPA, and so randomly he had driven by my house, and I was not there, but my brother was there, and he said, "Hey, has Eric done his taxes yet?" And that's when my brother said that line. He said, "Oh, by the way, don't report me to the IRS." But
Yeah.
he had said like, "Yeah, oh well, if it takes longer than 15 minutes, he's not going to do it." And the funny thing is, my friend, who's the CPA, is a totally different personality type than me. So then he just did my taxes for me. So not to say that you should get other people to do the things that you don't want to do for you, but maybe you should. Like, everyone has their individual like place in the society, and some people just like doing things more than other people. And so I think it's important to find who you are because you can bring that. You just need to get stronger and get skilled in that. I don't think we're naturally skilled in the task based on our personality type. I think a lot of people like personality typing and reading about it just because they want to feel good about themselves. But I always say, like, no, you're not naturally good at it. You're naturally inclined to like it. And I think the things that we like, we do more. And the more that we do them, then we get good at it. So there's still a little work to be put in.
Yeah. And do we consider things that we don't like to do? Okay, so we're procrastinating, right? So what is
Mhm.
procrastination? I mean,
Yeah, I mean, I think at the end of the day, if you're the type who really can't suck it up like me and really can't do the things that you don't want to do, it just puts an emphasis on finishing what you start or doing the things that, at least putting emphasis on maybe there are occasions where you have to just suck it up and just do it. Some people naturally just like take it and do the things that they don't particularly love doing. I think there are some weaknesses to that as well. You might find yourself living a life where you're just doing things for other people and not really fulfilling your own passion. For my personality type, I'm the type of personality that likes to start things, but maybe doesn't always finish them. And so knowing that helps me put a bigger emphasis on maybe I should need to focus on at least finishing at least half of the things I start. So knowing that helped me quite a bit, which is why I was able to like complete at least some of the things that I've started in my life, as you read in my bio.
yeah, has that helped, or is that what helped you create the Utopia project?
The Utopia Project was the website, which anyone can go on and like, take the personality test. Though I'm not particularly fond of online tests. Of course, we had to have one. That was just, I won't say a lark, but friends really liked the idea of the personality typing that I developed with my education company and thought that I should spread the word even more, which also helped because I still own the education company at that time. And I was able to have a reference point for my teachers as well to kind of like take the test. And it was just a little bit easier than having to do it myself.
So the Utopia 16 assessment, that's the test that you have. I think people
Yes.
like doing that, but sometimes they may not like the answer.
Yeah, exactly. We have a Game of Thrones test on there, and really it's just a skin, as they call it, of the Utopia 16, and then we have like little fun questions that you can take afterwards that kind of puts you in a Game of Thrones character. And it's just funny the results that people get because there are good characters in Game of Thrones that are very flattering, and there are not so or there are unflattering characters. So I think it's just funny when people get like one that's not so flattering, and they're like, "Oh, dang it, let me take this test again. Let me get someone else," you know?
Right.
Hmm.
But I think we are, so we have different personality traits, and sometimes you can be the extrovert and sometimes you can be the introvert. So would that be a certain, is that two different personality types?
Yeah, like I think certain people can be like we had mentioned before, like certain people can be extroverted and like for yourself, you seem to be someone who maybe, and I'm just guessing, your version of extroversion, you might be one to do a TED talk, but it might not necessarily be like if you really like you have a topic you really love, you could do a TED talk in front of, thousands of people, but you might not be the same one to like go do body shots in Cabo. That might not be your version of extroversion, right? And those are two very different things where the other person might, yeah, let's go to Cabo, but maybe might not have anything to say in a TED talk. Right? Maybe they might clam up. So I think it just depends on what we value, and the way I separate my personality typing, or I use my personality typing methodology is people are separated into four major groups, and those major groups all value something different. Now each group can value something that another group could values, but not at the same priority level. And I think once you find that out, and whatever I call them personality packs, once you find whatever personality pack you're in, then there are four animal personality types within each pack. Thus, 4 times 4 is 16. And so those animal personality types, the way they differentiate is how they go after that core value of the personality pack. Sorry, it sounds really
So
wonky. Sorry.
no, it's so crazy. You nailed it already. You're getting to know me already. So how can I stand up in front of 200 people and give a speech, but I can't walk up to a group of people and start a conversation?
Yeah, like it's just something that with my personality as well, I have that in me where if I really love something, I'll advocate for it, and go out there and talk about it. But I have difficulties with just something as formal as like introducing myself to a bunch of strangers. It's something for me. It's about the formality of all, where I feel like I'm being not particularly being genuine, but being kind of forced to fit in this kind of like, oh, come stand up, say your name, say one sentence about you. Like I freeze up when it comes to things like that. And I don't know why, because you're only saying like two things. I'm Eric and I like sports or something like that. And I don't know. I feel you. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah. So there's okay, so there's one topic that I want to talk to you about. And I hear this word so much recently, and um I'm going to ask you first, but the word narcissist, the
Hmm.
personality, is this a personality type?
So if you go into the book, like there are, it's a kind of a jokey, comical chapter in the book, but it's also, I take it seriously as well. It's called the deviant roles chapter. And so each personality type has its own deviant role. And it's really just a way to emphasize that, yes, there are strengths to each one, but clearly there are weaknesses too. And our strengths often are related to our weaknesses. So for every person who is like very responsible and organized and structured, they can also be rigid. And in the words of the book, their deviant role is the fascist, right? Because for every, responsible, strong-minded, confident, structured person, you'll find a bossy, rigid, like person who always thinks that maybe they're right. So we can go bad based on that strength. So like you said, a narcissist, there are lots of types that won't can maybe not ever can never be narcissistic. It's just not in their nature, because of based on their strengths, it's just never going to lead itself to narcissism. While others, like the performing types, the ones that are great in front of a bunch of people, you can count on them to be open and vulnerable and just show like this is me. At their weakest, they can be narcissists, right? Because they draw all the attention to them. They just get used to it and fixated on it, and then they need that attention, and they're constantly searching for it. So, I often like to focus on negative things because what I found is that if you say positive things, everyone's going to agree, right? So that's not necessarily accurate. If I say, "Oh, you must be athletic," and someone is not particularly athletic, they're going to say yes anyway because they're going to harken back to the days where they made their frosh soft team, back in high school, right? And they're like, oh yeah, I was athletic because I got like 2 minutes off the bench on my frosh soft team. So when I say negative things, people are only going to accept them if they're true.
Yeah, and it seems like too, like, we grow from seeing the contrast or the areas of life that, obviously that we're not happy with, right?
Yeah, I think those juxtaposition is one of the great things. Like the whole book is written using juxtaposition, where you can often see what you're not based on what you are, and vice versa. The more you interact with people who are different, you can kind of like juxtapose yourself on that person, and even the people who are similar to you but slightly different, you can go, oh, like we both value these things or this thing, but the way we go about it is really, really different. So maybe they are a different personality than I am.
Okay. Okay, so wait, what personality type are you?
I'm a baboon. I'm a baboon, which yeah, I'm saying this random animal. And people are like, what? Well, okay,
Yeah.
you're a baboon. You show your butts to people. That's what I was asked one time. It's like, wait, so that means you show your butt to people? I'm like, no, well, maybe. So baboons are part of. I could just say the major personality pack. It's the called the shaman personality pack, and basically shamans' number one value is self knowledge, either searching or seeking it out for myself or ourselves, I should say, for all the shamans out there, seeking it out for ourselves, or once we're comfortable, sharing it with others in terms of sharing our own self, true self, but also helping other people who maybe haven't discovered their true self find that. And that's what a big value for shamans are. Now, that might seem like people are like, doesn't everyone want to know themselves? I'm like, no, not really. Like, most people are actually pretty comfortable not doing that work and just kind of like, look, I got a great house, a great, comfortable life, a good job. I have fun and I'm comfortable. And that's great too. That's just another personality pack, not the shaman personality pack. And then within the shamans, I'm a baboon type, and we're a lot more loud and very vocal. We like to really strongly advocate for the principles that we believe in, whereas other members of the shaman types or the shaman pack are more like counselors or I would say group leaders, community organizers, spiritual advisors, things of that nature. So.
Okay. All right, so what do you think I am?
You said a couple of things. I kind of had a guess on one thing, and now like I'm wavering between two, but they're very similar. I do definitely know for a fact you're a shaman, like myself, just because of some of the things you said and how that's a greater emphasis. The name your show, Unleash Her. I love that because it's talking about yourself, but also really you're saying no, but that should be for everybody. Unleash yourself, right? I want to help you like get your true self out there, right? Um, and shamans are all about empowering others. That's a big thing. Like not necessarily through skills, like not saying, oh, let me teach you how to use a bow and arrow. It's more like, oh, let me teach you how to be yourself. That's their version of empowerment. Whereas, like, let's say another pack, like a gatherer pack, might be, let me empower you by showing you how to set up a 401k. Like, that's a different kind of empowerment. You seem to be more of the, like, hey, like, let me help you find out who you are, as I'm doing it as well, because I think it's important. So shaman for sure. And I was wavering between a baboon like myself or a humpback whale. And the difference between the two of those is, as I said before with a baboon, we're like, if you had a spiritual center in the village, which is why I said call them the shamans, a baboon would be the voice, and the humpback whale would be the soul. So
Mhm.
humpback whales like really draw everything towards themselves. They're the archetypal like hero, like the Joseph Campbell hero, like Luke Skywalker, Harry Potter, King Arthur kind of hero. So
Yeah. Okay.
so I don't
All
know
right.
which one of
Well,
those resonated.
I'm gonna have to go take this quiz and get your book, The Power of Personality.
Yeah, definitely the book would help a lot more. I mean, the quiz is great, and everyone should take the quiz just for fun. And if you're really interested in that, then you can buy the book. But like, I think that online tests can be a bit wonky and maybe not accurate.
Yeah. Okay. So what's next for you, Eric? What do you have? What do you
Like
you're working on right now?
I am I'm working on setting up maybe or planning out a podcast. I'm not the best planner, so when I say planning, that basically means talking about it to people and then not doing anything about it. So I really do have to get on that. But I'm trying to set up my next book, and the next book would be like a little bit more prescriptive. So this book is not necessarily as prescriptive as it could be, just because there's just so much information about helping people find who they are and identify the people around them. So the next book would be more like, okay, now that you know that, how can that information be super useful? Right? Now that information is in the book right now, but not as much. And this next book would really primarily focus on how can that be useful in like the romantic space. Right. And now I'm not, that has not necessarily ever been my profession. I am not like a relationship counselor. So thus I'm starting to set up a podcast to try to like get that set up so that I can kind of talk to people, interview people, and thus, that might help for before writing the book, So I'd like interview people from different personality types and ask them questions about how they view, if they have a significant other or spouse, like how they view them, what they value about them, that kind of thing.
Oh, I really like that idea. I
Yeah,
do.
and there is the theory. I know the theory. So I don't necessarily have the practical experience of counseling this, but I definitely know the theory about, okay, if you're this type, then and you're with this animal type, then you know what, you're probably not going to get along in this way, and you're probably going to get along this way, and that's pretty consistent based on the personalities.
Because I feel like the more that you know about yourself, the better relationships, the better career, like everything in your life, right?
Oh yeah, 100%. Like it helps in all those facets, like knowing the people around you, like knowing that they're not necessarily going to see the world in the same way, and that's okay. And you need to be able to identify with that versus how you identify like with yourself, right? Like if you know, and vice versa, like you got to identify yourself so that you know that the things around you aren't necessarily saying that you're doing something wrong. You're just doing something based on your own values.
Yeah, I had to take a good look a few years ago and I was like, I am not where I want to be. I'm not okay in my life. And I think, and that's why my mission is so strong, is that it is never too late. It
It's
is
never too late.
never,
Never too late.
ever. And it's fine. It's actually perfect if this is when it is in your life, because all of those things, I had to experience everything in my life to be where I'm at today, you
Oh
know?
yeah, 100%. I've had a few clients now, and I have had a lot of clients that were, around an age where they were doing the same thing. They're like, "Gosh, I really hate my job, and I don't know why I never thought about liking it in the first place or whether I liked it. I just kind of did what I was told and did it, and now like I'm realizing it kind of sucks. But it's never too late because at the end of the day, like we all kind of go through that, and whether you're like 11 or 12 or like your mid 40s or 50s or whatever. Like it's never too late to think because you always have that rest of your life, to enjoy.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you for that. Thank you for everything that you're doing.
Well, it's fun for me. I'm a baboon shaman, so helping people find themselves that's the greatest joy that I think a shaman could have is helping people find themselves and getting power from that.
Oh, yeah. It's so rewarding. And that's why with the mentoring and coaching, that's why I've really stepped into that. I know you've been
Mm.
doing that for a long time, but just by helping others, gosh, it helps yourself so much.
Oh yeah, I have a student now. Probably my favorite student. I shouldn't say that because you shouldn't have favorite students, but like I do well with other shamans too. So like shaman students, I'm not to say I can't work with any other student, but I really get that enjoyment because oftentimes when I'm working with them at their age group, they're feeling really bad. They're feeling, and I think she asked a question like, or she didn't ask a question. She just told me she's like, I don't want to grow up. And I'm like, I 100% understand what you mean by that. And I just told her you will grow up, but you don't have to grow up in the way you think or have been told that you need to grow up. And I think that's the difference. And unfortunately, they're not, depending on who's talking to them, they're not getting that advice. They're not seeing that. They're just being told, oh, you're going to grow up. And when you grow up, it's inevitable. You're going to want this, this, and this. And it's like, maybe you're not inevitably want this, and this. Maybe you're going to want something different.
Yes, I have to tell you, my children who aren't children anymore, my kids are like, no, we don't want to grow up.
That's okay. Like they just grow up into the different versions of themselves, right? I always say puppies don't grow into cats; they grow into dogs. So that's why I'm always saying personality types can't change. Everyone always, can I change my personality? I'm like, hey, if someone's telling you you can change, what they're really telling you is you can change and to be more like them. So I feel like that's often the case.
Mm.
That's why I don't like. Sometimes it sounds bad when you tell people they can't change or that people don't change. I'm like, no, I'm just trying to help you be more of yourself and not what the people or you've been told that you should be. Like you don't like if someone says you need to be more responsible, that's great. But if they're telling you you need to be more structured, no, be
Mhm.
your like flexible, spontaneous self because that's probably true to who you are.
Yeah, and weren't we talking about that earlier, saying changing versus growing.
Yeah, I think that's what I always say. You can't change, but we do grow, right? And we can grow into better versions of ourselves. We can also grow into worse versions of ourselves. And that's why I think it's so important to put in the work because obviously, if you're not, then you may grow into like you may be I call them the stag personality type. You may be that stag personality type that becomes a fascist in your life, right? Or you may be, let's say for a baboon, our deviant role would be the bomb thrower because sometimes we are that person who is a little too preachy and a little too like flaky when it comes to principle, or we might really value or like really love this idea and this principle, and then another thing comes over here and we're like, oh no, I love this now too, and we kind of jump from each and then just like promote it and preach like it's the most important thing in the world. We could get like that. So I think it's important to put in the work so we become the best version of ourselves.
Yes, agree. Okay, so um how would you, let's see, how do I say this? Would you like to do a TEDx? What if you were offered?
Oh, yeah, that would be great. I mean, because I can just talk about this forever. The only problem is like, would I talk too much? Would I have to be more focused? But yeah, I would probably talk about the same topic, right? Like, how do you know who you are? Find out who you are and stick to it. Find your anchor, and then once you have your anchor, then you can kind of test different other personalities and see how they work with you in terms of your skill set. But you got to know who you are first. Probably what I
Yeah.
would talk about.
Is that something you've thought about? Or is that one of your goals? Or do you have like big goals?
I think a baboon type just kind of takes things as they come, So not that we don't have goals, we obviously have. The problem with us is we have lots of different things that we want to do. So it's not like I think when people think of goals, they're like, oh God, I have this one goal, and that's great because it allows you to focus on it. With baboons, we're like, if you said, oh, do you want to like learn how to like surf? They're almost likely to say yes to everything. They're like, yeah, that sounds great. Yeah, that sounds great as well. And then they pursue like thousands of things and never get any of them done. I have a sausage making machine in my house right now that I was super excited to get as a gift, and yet I have not used it, and that's been about almost a year. So, like I gotta like so that was a long way of me saying I would love to do it if offered, but it's not something on the forefront actually in my mind, just because I have so many other unfinished product projects that I have.
Yeah, yeah, I'm with you there. Thank you so much for this. This was so helpful.
Well, I'm glad, and I hope that maybe I think you're more of a baboon. It would be my guess. But then I should have asked the question. See, I should have tried to figure out do you are you at your worst? Are you more preachy or are you more self-sacrificing?
Oh, now that's a tough question. It depends.
Yeah, like what would your children complain most about you? Like what would be their biggest complaint? We're like, oh God, mom's like blank. And once again, I always focus on the
I
negative,
wish
right?
they were here right now. I will tell you, why is this standing out in my head? Um, I was so insecure, and I'm talking like a year or so ago. Okay.
Hmm.
There are times still today that I'm so insecure that I couldn't even walk into like a restaurant or an establishment first.
Hmm.
They would be like, Mom, like go, like lead. Yeah. So this is something that I've been working on. They're like, Go, do, get yourself out there." So I think they're actually, I don't know that they,
Oh, sorry, I lost sound.
I bumped. Can you hear me
Oh
now?
yeah, I hear you now. Sorry.
I bumped the microphone, you guys. I guess that wasn't supposed to be heard.
You're just like, oh no, I can't let this out.
Yeah, I know I was talking about my kids. We'll have to I need to bring them on here and ask them.
That's
But
a
yeah,
great story though, because that's like so what how shamans feel all the time. Shamans doesn't matter at what age you are, they'll always be a little insecure. I myself am a
yeah,
shaman. I know that for a fact. It's always like, am I okay? Am I doing the right thing here? But you're always going to do the right thing if you're being
yeah.
yourself. Now, but that's obviously easier said than done.
You
Um,
know,
yeah.
Eric, I've had so much clarity. So I just moved early this year and I'm on like 30, I have 35, I'm in this home on 35 acres.
Oh
Okay.
wow. Uh-huh.
So I have found so much clarity and peace by just being here that I tell everybody like you got to get quiet, to figure out what you
Mhm.
want. And now that I've been able to do that, oh my gosh, watch out.
You're
I can't.
unleashed.
I have unleashed
Mhm.
myself and I want everyone else to do the same. So, first of all, yeah, figure out what you want and then go get it and find the mentors and coaches along the way to help you.
Oh yeah, and the fact that you're on 35,000 acres is that's
30, 35 acres.
35 is like
Five.
35,000. I was like,
Yeah,
that's
right.
a lot of acres.
That would be a
But
lot.
yeah, but
Yeah.
even then, 35 acres, that's a lot. And I think that I'm sorry, I've been trying to think. That's a humpback whale move. That's total humpback whale move. That you said peace, like I have found
Ooh,
peace. That's not that other
yeah.
shamans don't want to find peace,
Yeah.
but humpback whales most of all, and that's how they get it. You see, they tend to love nature as well. I don't know if you love being around nature, but that's something that
Love it.
yeah, there's a spiritual communion to it. Versus like, there are other types who love like nature and the type who's like, oh, I see that mountain, I'm gonna climb it because it's there. That's a different kind of, goal and value system, right? But here it's more like since you're trying to find yourself, nature helps with that. That's the communion of the spirits, let's say. So that's very
Oh my
humpback
gosh.
whale.
I've always been so goal oriented. And, my daughter and I will tease and we'll say, I'm going to make it to the top of that mountain. And blood, sweat, tears, backpack, barefoot, whatever it takes. Like, I'm going to make it. And she's like, I'm going to make it to the top of that mountain. She's like, I think I'll take a helicopter.
Well, she's a little more practical.
I'm like, why didn't I think of that?
I like to hear kids are saying, just go, mom, because obviously there's that expectation that parents need to be leaders like that.
Uh-huh.
But I think it's just because certain, it's the same thing as like birth order. Like people are always like, the oldest kid's always like this. I'm like, no, that doesn't work that way. It only works because like half the population fits into one personality pack. And if you are that personality pack, I call them gatherers, then yes, if you're the oldest child, then you'll do all those things. You'll be the responsible person. You'll kind of basically be parentified. You'll like take care of your brothers and sisters, but that's only works half the time. But I think because it does work half the time, people just see that and go, "Oh, okay, that's normal. That's how older children act." But coming from someone whose older child or older sibling was not a gatherer, I can tell you for a fact that my younger brother is the gatherer among us, and he is the one who's conscientious about everything. Like he's the one who I wouldn't say he takes care of us, but he's the one who's telling us, "Oh, don't forget it's mom's birthday. What do you want to get her?" And then my older sister and I, we don't respond to his text. And then he's like, okay, I got her this. And then we're like, okay, cool. We'll text you the money or we'll Venmo you the money. Like that's his role because that's what gatherers do. So I think in general, parents don't have to be like that either. Parents can be like, JD Salinger, maybe not necessarily go out into the woods and leave your kids alone, but like create a world of imagination, not necessarily being the first into the restaurant, but maybe helping your kids find themselves and create these know that it's okay to create imaginary worlds that they exist in their own mind. That's what Salinger did. So
Yeah. And it's like I was pushing them first. I was trying to lead the way for them first. I took the back seat for a while. And now I'm like, okay, time for me. Let's go.
yeah, so I mean everyone can lead in different ways, right? Like there's not being a great
Yeah.
leader is not just being in the front bossing people around. Like that doesn't I don't think leadership works that way all the time. I don't maybe bossing around it doesn't work any of the time that way, but everyone has their own style.
Yeah. And that's interesting. So I'm the youngest.
Okay. Did
Okay.
your older do you have a who's the oldest? Do you have an oldest brother or sister?
Sister.
And was she the typical older child? I'm putting that in quotes, but like in terms of like taking responsibility for everything and kind of like making sure you follow the rules, that kind of stuff.
God, I don't know. She broke all the rules.
Oh, then there you go. That's
I'm
perfect.
sorry. Sorry,
No,
Debbie.
yeah, that hey, you know what? That's perfect because that proves the point. It's like, by the way, my sister I totally understand that because we would do all these things that we weren't supposed to do. And then when our parents would catch us, she would snitch on me and say, oh, it was Eric's idea. And my parents were sharp enough to know, wait a minute, it wouldn't be his idea. He's the younger, so he's just going to do what his older sister wants to do because she always wanted to play and break the rules. So there are certain types that do that, and that's fun because, then you need to learn how to break the rules a little bit because when you get older, there are certain jobs that, and places, roles in society where there are no rules. If you're a firefighter and you're in the middle of a fire, there are really no rules. I mean, things are coming from all over the place. You can't predict. It is not a safe environment. You have to be able to be flexible and be able to adjust. And not all personality types can do that, but there are certain other types that can. So I'm guessing your sister falls into one of those.
Wow. Well, that's interesting. You mentioned firefighter, and that's my son actually, after going, to college and landing a corporate job, was like, nope, this isn't for me.
Mm.
And so he's a firefighter. He is on his way to becoming a paramedic, and he has found his passion and his love.
That's so great because it's so, I mean, it totally fits too, like the idea of like, we're told you need to be safe and secure because that's what the gatherers want. That's the 50% of the population. It sounds to me like your son is what we call a hunter, and hunters make about a third of the population, and they seek fun and excitement. They need to be out and doing things and action. They're very action oriented. So, being a corporate job where maybe you're not only say in a cubicle, but maybe in an office where you don't really get out that much is totally different. And even though you're making money and it's safe, you know, hunters don't want that. They want to be out there. They want to be out there hustling, whether, yeah, it's being a paramedic or a firefighter or just maybe being like a salesperson. They like that too. So,
Yeah, yeah, that's awesome. Oh, shout out to my son. Thank you again, Eric, for being here. This is great. We could go on forever. This is fun.
yeah, I was gonna. I don't know. Would you like to hear a story that's similar to your son's, or do you need to cut right now?
Yes. No, go ahead. I'm
I
good.
mean, it's just a good example of how if you find out young, you can really find out what you want to do. Even though this is not this, my cousin's kid was not particularly young, but my cousin's kid was. I was shucking oysters with him over New Year's because I knew he would want to learn because he was like your son. He's a hunter, so he likes using tools and learning how to use tools, and he has a facility for using them. So I'm like, okay, I'll teach you how to shuck, and he learned right away. But anyway, we're talking about what he wants to do with his life, and he's like, and he just graduated from pharmacy school, and I know when he applied and got in, I was like, oh, that doesn't seem like a great job for you. But I didn't say anything. And so now I asked him like, oh, so what do you want to do? And he's like, oh, as long as I don't have to be in the same place all day long. And I was like, that's exactly what pharmacists do. Is they're in the place, whether it's the 9 to 5 or whatever shift, they know what they're going to do every day, and they know where they're going to be every day. And so I told him, well, maybe you want to get like involved in pharmaceutical sales because there you'll be able to travel and you'll be able to meet different people, and every day will be different, and as long as you're okay hustling, then you can really climb that corporate ladder. And then he was like, oh, but I don't want to waste all the years that I learned, in pharmacy school, right? Because you don't technically need that to be a salesperson or sales rep. And I was like, yeah, but you only got one life. So you want to waste that doing something you don't want to do? And he's like, oh, yeah, I guess that's a good point. So I just use that as an allegory, or not an allegory, but an anecdote to tell people like, hey, like it's never too late, number one, and also it's very very important to try to figure out what you want to do because we only got one life and we don't, it's not given back. Once we lose it, we don't get it back. So spend it doing something you love.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you for sharing that.
You're welcome.
I appreciate that. Any last comments where people can find you? Your book.
Yeah, you can find it on Amazon if you want to give Jeff Bezos your money. You just look up The Power of Personality. You can also order from your local bookstore, Barnes and Noble. Depends on whatever bookseller you want to support, bookshop. And then you can find me on The Power of Personality on my Instagram. We're at The Power of Personality. Not huge in social media, but I do use it and I'll occasionally drop reels there. And you can take the test on the website, which is utopiaproject.com. And that's YOU, like YouTube. So utopiaproject.com.
All right. Thank you so much, Eric. I appreciate you being here.
Well, thank you so much for having me.
This was good. Thank you guys. Thank you all for being here too. And we really appreciate you guys. We appreciate your support and all that you do. And this podcast is growing. We are unleashing ourselves and becoming the best version, you guys. I can feel it. I am calling these people to us, people like Eric, who are just raw and real and authentic. I love it. So thank you again. Make sure that you like and subscribe. Jump on over to YouTube. See us there. Daily inspiration and motivation. Thank you all for coming. And until next time, see you all later.